All right, guys, let's talk about some subtraction. First off, when you look at subtraction like this is what we call the standard algorithm. And yes, I kind of messed up my M and my H. The standard algorithm is what you'll probably see a lot, and there's good and bad to it. Third graders will do this a lot. They will say 0 minus 6 is 6. 0 minus 2 is 2. And 5 minus 1 is 4. Now, adults probably recognize that that's just not true. 0 minus 6 is not 6. 0 minus 2 is not 2. 5 minus 1 is 4. But one of the problems is what we're calling these things anyway. This isn't 0 minus 2, this is actually 0 minus 20, right? Not 0 minus 2, but we just think about these as digits, and that is where things get confusing. 5 minus 1 is 4, but really we're talking about 500 minus 100 is 400. Now, one big thing here is that we should recognize that if we have 500 and we're taking away over 100, our answer should be 300 something. But the second part here is that people keep saying things like this: 0 minus 6, you can't do it. Well, that's just not true. You can do it, it just wouldn't be 6. For example, if you had 0 minus 6, you can do it, it would just be negative 6. 0 minus 20, you can do it, it just would be negative 20. 500 minus 100 is 400. And from there we get into maybe a better way to even think about it, but all these negatives gets a little confusing for third graders, which is why we don't really do it this way. But we could say 400 minus 20 minus 6 is 374, and that's true. Here's maybe a different way of looking at that same thing. We take the 500, we take the 126, and we break it up into 100, 20, and 6, and that can be kind of a simple way for a third grader. This is actually how a third grader might be able to do that same idea. You'll notice again, 100, 20, and 6, that's what we have here. As we subtracted 100, we subtracted a 20, and we subtracted a 6. So over here, 500 minus 100 is 400. 400 minus 20 is 380. That can be something that can be a little bit tricky for a third grader, but give them a couple seconds and they can figure it out. And then 380 minus 6 is 374. One way we can look at this is on a number line, and that can be a really good way for a student to kind of keep track of like what they've done and what they still need to do. Again, still breaking up that, keep the 500 together, but still breaking up the 126 into 100, 20, and 6. We'll talk about breaking that up into different parts later. But from here we have 500 minus 100 is 400, 400 minus 20 is 380, and 380 minus 6 is 374. Now here's where a student in third grade might break this part up or this part up into different pieces. For example, they might break the 20 up into tens. So like they might say, I'm gonna subtract 10 and then 10. So we have 400, 390, 380, and they might break up the 6 into a 5 and a 1. So they might say 380 minus 5, I know that, it's 375, and then subtract 1 more is 374. Those are typical ways you might see a student do that. But again, the big thing here we want with our third graders is two things. One, recognize that if you're subtracting more than 100, your answer is going to be 300 something, not 400 something. So noticing that something's wrong here, and then realizing that maybe we should stay away from saying you can't do that, because you can subtract 6 from 0, it just ends up being negative 6. And instead try to get them to think about, how much am I actually subtracting? I'm subtracting 100, well, let's do 100, that's easy. I'm subtracting 20, well, that's actually still pretty easy for me to do. I'm subtracting 6, I can do that too. Instead of this craziness, the standard algorithm. It totally works, but it is super confusing. And really, our kids aren't thinking about what they're doing, they're just following steps.